The dust from the stagecoach hadn't even settled when Sarah Brennan stumbled into Redemption Creek, her dress torn at the hem, her face bruised purple along the left cheekbone. 3 days of walking through the Wyoming Territory had reduced her wedding ring, her mother's wedding ring, to the only thing of value she still possessed. Her stomach cramped with hunger so fierce it brought tears to her eyes, and her lips were cracked and bleeding from the relentless sun. The general store stood before her like a mirage, its wooden sign creaking in the hot wind. She pushed through the door, and the proprietor, a thick-necked man with suspicious eyes, looked her up and down with the kind of assessment that made her skin crawl. "I need food," Sarah managed, her voice hoarse. "I can pay." She twisted the gold band from her finger, the metal catching the afternoon light streaming through the window. It was all she had left of her mother, all she had left of the life before Marcus Brennan had shown her what matrimony could mean when a man had whiskey in his blood and rage in his fists. The store owner reached for the ring, but a hand, calloused, strong, bearing the scars of hard labor, intercepted it. "Gold isn't what anyone needs here, ma'am," a deep voice said from behind her. Sarah turned to find herself looking into the most startling pair of gray eyes she'd ever seen, set in a face weathered by sun and hardship, but somehow gentle. The man stood well over 6 feet, his shoulders broad beneath a worn blue shirt, his dark hair touching his collar. A scar ran along his jawline, giving him a dangerous edge that should have frightened her, but somehow didn't. "What you need is a hot meal and a place to rest. The ring stays with you." If you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and give this video a like. Your support truly matters to us and motivates us to bring you more quality content like this. Thank you. Thomas Wade had learned long ago that the measure of a person showed clearest in their moment of greatest need. The woman standing before him, trembling despite the August heat, one hand unconsciously raised to protect her bruised face, had the look of someone who'd been running from the devil himself. He'd seen that look before, in the mirror, years ago when he'd fled his own demons. "I run a ranch about 5 miles north," he continued, keeping his voice level, unthreatening. "I need someone who can cook and manage a household. My foreman's wife passed this spring, and the men are living on burnt beans and leather they call bacon. I can offer room, board, and fair wages." He watched her eyes, deep brown, like rich creek soil, flicker with something between hope and terror. "No expectations beyond honest work. You have your own quarters in the main house." Sarah studied him, searching for the lie, the trap, the cruelty that would inevitably follow. Marcus had taught her that men's kindness always came with a price. But this stranger's eyes held steady, and something in the set of his jaw spoke of a man who kept his word. Still, she hesitated. "I don't even know your name," she whispered. "Thomas Wade. Most folks call me Wade." He tipped his hat slightly, the gesture somehow both formal and friendly. "And you are?" "Sarah." She didn't offer her married name. That name had died somewhere on the trail between Cheyenne and here, left behind with the bruises and the terror and the 2 years of hell she'd endured. "Well then, Sarah, I've got a wagon outside. Unless you'd rather stay in town?" He said it without judgment, leaving the choice entirely hers. That simple gesture, being given a choice, nearly broke her. When was the last time anyone had asked what she wanted? She looked around the general store, at the proprietor who'd been ready to take her ring for a fraction of its worth, at the dusty street beyond, where men stared at her with a mixture of pity and speculation. Then she looked back at Wade, at those steady gray eyes that promised nothing but honest work and safety. "The ranch," she said quietly, her voice gaining strength. "I'll go to the ranch." Wade nodded, as if she'd just made the wisest decision in the world. He turned to the store owner. "You need to eat before we make the ride." His tone left no room for argument, but it wasn't unkind. "Besides, I'm getting a cook out of the deal. I figure feeding you now is just good business sense." The corner of Sarah's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but the ghost of one. It had been so long since she'd felt anything approaching humor that she'd almost forgotten the sensation. The ride to the Wade Ranch took just over an hour, and with each mile, Sarah felt some of the tension drain from her shoulders. Wade didn't press her with questions or make uncomfortable small talk. He simply drove the wagon with practiced ease, occasionally pointing out landmarks, the creek that wound through his property, the stand of cottonwoods where eagles nested, the rocky outcropping that marked the northern boundary of his land. "Been ranching here for 8 years, he said, as they crested a rise and the valley spread out before them. "Started with nothing but a land grant and a dream. Built it all from scratch." Sarah caught her breath at the view. The Wade Ranch sprawled across a valley so beautiful it made her chest ache. Rolling grasslands stretched toward mountains that turned purple in the evening light, and the creek he'd mentioned wound through the property like a silver ribbon, catching the late afternoon sun. Cattle dotted the landscape, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. And there, nestled against a gentle slope, stood the ranch house itself. It was larger than she'd expected. Solid timber construction, 2 stories, with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Outbuildings dotted the property, a barn, a bunkhouse, corrals, one looked like a dairy. This wasn't just a ranch, it was a thriving enterprise. "Built the house myself," Wade said, following her gaze. Pride colored his voice, but also something sad. "Took 3 years. Thought I'd fill it with." He stopped abruptly, jaw tightening. "Well, it's a good house. Solid. Keeps the winter wind out." Sarah heard what he didn't say. He'd built it for someone. Built it for a family that never came to be. She recognized the weight of loss in his voice because she carried her own. The foreman, a grizzled man with skin like tanned leather and kind eyes, met them in the yard. "Thank the Lord," he said when Wade introduced him as Dutch Peters. "Wade, if I had to eat my own cooking one more night, I was fixing to shoot myself." He removed his hat when he saw Sarah, revealing a bald head sunburned to leather. "Begging your pardon, ma'am. We're rough men here, but we're honest. You'll be safe and respected on this ranch." Something in Sarah's chest loosened slightly. She'd expected to be viewed with suspicion or worse, but Dutch's weathered face showed only genuine relief and welcome. "Let me show you to your room," Wade said, helping her down from the wagon. His hands on her waist were gentle, releasing her the moment her feet touched ground. "Dutch, can you see to the supplies?" "Already on it, boss." The inside of the house was as impressive as the outside. Solid wood floors, real glass windows, furniture that looked handmade but well-crafted. The main room had a massive stone fireplace, a long dining table that could seat a dozen, and shelves lined with books. Actual books, more than Sarah had ever seen outside a library. Wade led her up the stairs to the 2nd floor. "There are 4 bedrooms up here. This one's yours." He opened a door to reveal a room that made Sarah's throat tight with emotion. It wasn't fancy, but it was beautiful in its simplicity. A real bed with a thick quilt in shades of blue and cream, a washstand with a porcelain basin and pitcher, a wardrobe for clothes, a rocking chair by the window that faced east toward those incredible mountains. Curtains, actual curtains in a delicate floral print, framed the glass. Sarah stood in the doorway, unable to move, unable to process that this space was for her. In Cheyenne, she and Marcus had lived in a boarding house room half this size, and she'd been forbidden from changing anything, touching anything, existing anywhere, except in the corner Marcus designated for her. "I'll have Dutch bring up hot water for washing," Wade said from behind her, his voice gentle. "Supper's whenever you're ready. No rush. If you need to rest first, that's fine too." He paused, and when he spoke again, his tone was even softer. "Sarah, you're safe here. I give you my word. No one will hurt you. No one will demand anything beyond the work we agreed on. This room is yours, and it has a lock on the inside. You control who comes in." She turned to face him, this stranger who'd shown her more kindness in 2 hours than her husband had in 2 years of marriage. Wade's gray eyes were steady, honest, and patient. He stood with his hands at his sides, non-threatening, waiting for her to respond. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why help me? You don't know me. I could be anyone. Wade was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. 6 years ago, my wife Lily died in childbirth. The baby, our son, didn't make it either. His voice was steady, but Sarah heard the old pain beneath it. Before she passed, there was this moment when she knew it was going bad, and she looked at me and said, "Wade, promise me you'll help people. Promise me you'll be kind." Those were her last words to me. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "I'm so sorry." "Me too." Wade's jaw worked. "Point is, I made her a promise, and more than that, I believe in helping people when they need it. Because someone should have helped someone I loved once. They didn't." He met her eyes again. "So when I see a woman who's clearly running from something terrible, who's got bruises on her face and terror in her eyes, I help. Because maybe it balances the scale somehow. Maybe it honors Lily's memory. Or maybe it's just the right thing to do." Sarah felt tears slip down her cheeks before she could stop them. Wade's expression softened impossibly further, but he made no move to touch her, to comfort her physically. He simply stood there, giving her space to feel what she needed to feel. "Thank you," she whispered, "for the kindness, for the choice, for treating me like a person." "You are a person," Wade said firmly. "Don't ever let anyone make you believe otherwise." He pulled the door partially closed behind him. "Rest if you need to. I'll be downstairs when you're ready." Alone in the room, Sarah sank onto the bed, her bed, and allowed herself to cry for the first time since she'd fled Cheyenne. Not from fear or pain this time, but from overwhelming relief. She'd survived. Against all odds, she'd survived. That night, Sarah cooked her first meal in the Wade Ranch kitchen and discovered she loved it. The kitchen was large and well-equipped, with a massive cast-iron stove, abundant counter space, and shelves stocked with basics. Dutch had shown her the root cellar, cold room, and smokehouse, all well-stocked with preserved foods, fresh vegetables, cured meats. "Wade's a planner," Dutch had explained. "Man doesn't do anything halfway. When he decided to build a ranch, he built it proper." Sarah made venison stew with wild onions and carrots from the root cellar, cornbread with real butter, and coffee strong enough to fuel a long day's work. As she cooked, she felt something inside her begin to unfurl. Some part of herself she'd thought Marcus had destroyed. She'd always loved cooking, loved the alchemy of transforming raw ingredients into something nourishing and good. In Cheyenne, Marcus had criticized every meal, found fault in everything she made. Here, in this kitchen with the evening light streaming through the windows, she cooked for the simple joy of it. The 6 ranch hands ate in reverent silence, their faces showing genuine appreciation. These were hard men, weathered by sun and labor, but they thanked her politely, complimented the food sincerely, and cleaned their plates without complaint. Wade himself said little during the meal, but Sarah caught him watching her several times, with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not hunger, at least not the predatory kind she'd learned to fear. Something else. Something that made her pulse quicken in a way that wasn't entirely unpleasant. After the meal, as Sarah cleaned the kitchen, Dutch appeared with a lantern. "Let me show you around proper," he said. "Wade's already tending the horses, and the men have retired, but you should know where everything is." He walked her through the property, the dairy where 3 cows provided milk and cream, the chicken coop where 24 hens roosted, the smokehouse, the spring house where food stayed cool even in summer. As they walked, Dutch talked easily about the ranch, about Wade, about the rhythm of life here. "Wade's a good man," Dutch said as they stood by the corral, watching the horses move like shadows in the dimming light. "Best I've ever worked for. Fair, honest, treats his men with respect. But he's been alone too long, I think. House that big, meant for a family, and it's just him rattling around in it like a dried pea in a pod." Sarah wasn't sure how to respond to that, so she simply nodded. "Point is," Dutch continued, "he's not expecting anything from you, ma'am. Wade's not that kind of man. But if you're running from something or someone, you should know you found the safest place in the territory. We protect our own here." "Thank you," Sarah said softly. "That means more than you know." Later, lying in the soft bed, with the window open to let in the cool night air, Sarah listened to the sounds of the ranch settling for sleep. The low of cattle in the distance, the murmur of the creek, the chirp of crickets, and underneath it all, a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. For the first time since she'd married Marcus Brennan, Sarah allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, life could be different. The days fell into a rhythm. Sarah rose with the sun, cooked breakfast for the men, flapjacks, eggs, bacon, biscuits with gravy, and found satisfaction in their genuine appreciation. After breakfast, she tended the kitchen garden Dutch had shown her, pulling weeds and harvesting vegetables. The physical labor felt good, grounding, real. She cooked 3 meals a day, learning the men's preferences. Dutch liked his coffee black and his bacon crispy. The youngest hand, a boy named Paulie, who couldn't be more than 16, had a sweet tooth and always asked hopefully if there might be pie. The others, Jack, Tom, Miguel, and Sam, were easy to please and grateful for anything that wasn't burnt beans. Wade himself ate little, she noticed. He was always the first one up and the last to come in, working himself harder than any of his men. At meals, he sat at the head of the table, but contributed little to the conversation, lost in his own thoughts. Yet Sarah often caught him watching her. Not in the leering way Marcus used to watch, calculating her faults, but with a kind of quiet wonder, as if he couldn't quite believe she was real. On her 4th day at the ranch, Sarah was hanging laundry when she noticed wildflowers on the kitchen windowsill, bright Indian paintbrush and delicate columbine. She hadn't picked them. When she asked Dutch about it later, the old foreman just smiled mysteriously and said, "Wade's got a habit of picking flowers, says they make the house prettier." The next morning, there were more flowers, and the morning after that. Sarah never saw Wade bring them, but she knew The gesture was so simple, so thoughtful, that it made her chest ache. 2 weeks into her stay, Wade approached her in the garden where she was harvesting squash. "Sarah," he said, his hat in his hands, "I was wondering if you might like to learn to ride." She straightened, pushing hair back from her face. "Ride?" "The horse." His gray eyes were kind. "Out here, it's a useful skill. And, well, I thought you might like the freedom of it. Being able to go where you want, when you want." Sarah understood what he wasn't saying. The ability to flee if necessary. The power to control her own movement. "I've never been on a horse," she admitted. "Then it's time you learned." Wade's smile was gentle. "Come on, I've got the perfect mare for you." The horse was a beautiful chestnut with a cream-colored mane and tail, her eyes soft and patient. "Her name's Copper," Wade explained, running a hand down the horse's neck. "She's gentle as they come, and smart too. She'll take care of you." Mounting the horse for the first time was terrifying. Sarah's hands shook as Wade positioned her foot in the stirrup, and when she finally sat in the saddle, higher up than she'd expected, she gripped the pommel so hard her knuckles turned white. "Easy," Wade said, his hand on her knee. Warm, steadying, gone as quickly as it had appeared. "Copper's not going anywhere until you're ready. Just sit for a moment. Get used to the feel of her." Sarah forced herself to breathe, to relax her death grip on the saddle. Beneath her, Copper stood patient and still, as if she understood Sarah's fear and was willing to wait it out. "Good," Wade murmured. "That's good, Sarah. Now take the reins. Gentle, like you're holding a baby bird. You're not trying to control her so much as guide her. Horses can feel everything through the reins. Your fear, your confidence, your intentions." Over the next hour, Wade taught her the basics: how to hold the reins, how to use her legs to signal the horse, how to find her balance in the saddle. He was endlessly patient, never criticizing, always encouraging, and when Sarah finally managed a full circuit of the paddock at a slow walk, his grin was so broad and genuine, it transformed his entire face. "Look at you," he called out. "Born to the saddle." "Hardly," Sarah laughed. But she couldn't deny the fierce joy that surged through her. She was moving under her own power, in control, free. It was intoxicating. After the lesson, as Wade helped her dismount, his hands on her waist lingered just a moment longer than necessary. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Recognition, attraction, possibility. Then Wade stepped back quickly, clearing his throat. "You did well," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "Real well. We'll practice more tomorrow if you'd like." "I'd like that," Sarah said softly. "Very much." That night, she dreamed not of Marcus and terror, but of riding through open fields with the wind in her hair and the sun on her face. The riding lessons became a daily ritual. Each morning after breakfast, Wade would saddle Copper and spend an hour teaching Sarah how to trot, how to navigate obstacles, how to read the horse's mood and respond accordingly. Sarah discovered she loved it, loved the partnership with the animal, loved the sense of power and freedom it gave her. "You're a natural," Wade said one morning as Sarah guided Copper through a series of turns. "Another few weeks and you'll be ready to ride out with me to check the herd." "Really?" Sarah couldn't keep the pleasure from her voice. "Really." Wade's smile was warm. "Though we'll need to get you proper riding clothes. Can't check cattle in a dress." The thought of wearing trousers, scandalous, made Sarah laugh. "I think that might shock your ranch hands." "They'll survive," Wade said dryly. Besides, practicality beats propriety out here. This is the frontier, not a Boston drawing room. As August deepened into September, Wade also taught Sarah to shoot. Every person on this ranch needs to be able to handle a gun, he explained, setting up tin cans on fence posts. Not because we're looking for trouble, but because trouble sometimes finds you anyway. Predators, thieves, accidents, you need to be able to protect yourself. He handed her a revolver, the weight of it both frightening and empowering. First rule, never point a gun at anything you don't intend to shoot. Second rule, assume it's always loaded. Third rule, know your target and what's beyond it. Standing behind her, Wade positioned her arms, adjusted her stance. His chest was warm against her back, his hands gentle but firm on her wrists. Steady breath, he murmured near her ear, sending an unexpected shiver down her spine. Sight along the barrel. Pick your target. Squeeze the trigger. Don't pull. The gun kicked hard when she fired, but the can jumped and clattered to the ground. Sarah lowered the revolver, shocked by her own success. I did it. You did. Wade's voice was close to her ear, rough with something that might have been pride, or might have been something else entirely. You're full of surprises, Sarah. She turned her head, suddenly acutely aware of how close they were, how his hands still rested lightly on her arms. Their eyes met, and the air between them seemed to thicken, charged with unspoken possibility. Wade's gaze dropped to her lips, lingered there, then quickly away. He stepped back, putting proper distance between them. Should, practice a bit more, he said, clearing his throat. Hitting one can doesn't make you Annie Oakley yet. But the moment lingered between them, humming with potential, a question neither was quite ready to ask. It was Dutch who brought the storm clouds, riding hard into the ranch yard one October afternoon, his weathered face grim with concern. "Wade!" he called, swinging down from his horse before it had fully stopped. "Got word from town. There's a man asking questions about a woman matching Sarah's description." Sarah, who'd been picking the last of the squash from the garden, felt her blood turn to ice. The basket fell from her hands, squash rolling across the dirt, forgotten. Her vision tunneled, darkening at the edges. "What did you tell them?" Wade's voice cut through her panic. He appeared from the barn, his expression darkening with protective fury. "Nothing," Dutch assured him quickly. "But read at the saloon, says this fellow's offering money for information. Calls himself Brennan. Says his wife ran off with his savings, and he wants her back to face justice." Dutch spat in the dirt, his disgust evident. "Load of horseshit if you ask me. Man's got eyes like a snake and a temper to match. He's trouble, Wade." Sarah couldn't breathe. The world tilted sickeningly, and suddenly Wade was there, his hands on her shoulders, steady and sure, anchoring her to reality. "Sarah, look at me." She raised her eyes to his, drowning in terror. "He's not taking you. Do you hear me? He's not taking you." "You don't understand what he's like," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He'll kill you, Wade. He's killed before. I saw him beat a man to death in Cheyenne over a card game. The man said something Marcus didn't like, and Marcus just kept hitting him even after he stopped moving. If you get between him and what he wants, then he'll have to kill me," Wade said simply, his voice like iron. "Because I'm not moving. I'm not letting him anywhere near you." "Wade, please." He cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize she was crying. "Sarah, listen to me. I've faced down rustlers, outlaws, and a grizzly bear that took exception to me being on his mountain. I'm not afraid of Marcus Brennan." His gray eyes blazed with conviction. "You're under my protection now. That means something. It means I'll stand between you and anyone who tries to hurt you, and I won't back down. Do you understand?" Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to tell him to let her go, to save himself. But the fierce determination in his eyes stopped her. This wasn't bravado or foolish heroism. This was a man making a promise he intended to keep. Consequences be damned. "Together," Wade said firmly. "We face this together. You're not alone anymore, Sarah. You're not facing him alone." The word "together" unlocked something in her chest, some door she'd kept firmly closed. She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. That night, Dutch posted guards on the property approaches. The ranch hands checked their weapons and spoke in low, serious voices. And Wade moved his bedroll to the hallway outside Sarah's room. She heard him settle, heard the rustle of blankets, and something in her chest both ached and sang at his quiet protection. She lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening for the sound of approaching horses that never came. Near midnight, unable to bear the silence and her own thoughts, Sarah spoke into the darkness. "Wade, you awake?" "Yes." His voice was low, tired. Can I come out there, just to talk?" There was a pause. Then, "Of course." Sarah lit the lamp and opened the door. Wade sat on the floor, his back against the wall, still fully dressed except for his boots. She joined him, pulling her robe tighter around herself, sitting close enough to feel his warmth, but not quite touching. In the lamplight, his face looked carved from stone, all sharp angles and shadow. He looked tired, she realized, bone-tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. "Tell me about her," Sarah said softly, surprising herself. "About Lily." Wade was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, his voice rough with old pain, "She laughed at everything. The world was full of joy for her, even when times were hard. She could find beauty in the smallest things. A butterfly, a sunrise, the way frost made patterns on the windows." He smiled sadly. "She made me believe I could be more than just a ranch hand, drifting from place to place. Made me want to build something permanent, something lasting. You loved her very much. With everything I had." Wade's voice cracked slightly. "But I couldn't save her. I was supposed to protect her. That's what a husband does, what a man does. And I failed." "It wasn't your fault," Sarah said firmly. "Childbirth is dangerous. You can't blame yourself for—" "Head knows that," Wade interrupted quietly. "Heart's slower to learn." He turned to look at her, his gray eyes shadowed with old grief and new feeling. "But Sarah, what I'm feeling for you, it's not because you remind me of her. You don't. She was sunshine and laughter. You're fierce and strong and brave in ways she never had to be. You survived something that would have broken most people." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was rough with calluses, his fingers scarred from labor, but his touch was infinitely gentle. "I'm falling in love with you," Wade said, the words falling between them like stones into still water. "Have been since that first day in town. And if that's too much, if you're not ready or don't feel the same, I'll step back. I'll honor the agreement we made. Employer and employee, nothing more. But I needed you to know, needed you to understand that when I stand between you and Brennan, it's not just about keeping a promise to Lily. It's because losing you would destroy me." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs so hard She thought he must hear it. "I don't know if I can be what you need," she whispered. "Marcus, he damaged something in me." The thought of being touched, of being intimate, of being vulnerable with another person. Her voice broke. "I don't know if I can get past that." "Then we go slow," Wade said firmly, squeezing her hand. "As slow as you need. A year, 10 years, forever, doesn't matter. I'm not Marcus, Sarah. I'll die before I hurt you, and I'll never ask for more than you're ready to give." Tears slipped down Sarah's cheeks, hot and unchecked. "I think I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered. "And it terrifies me, because the last time I trusted a man, the last time I let myself be vulnerable." "I know." Wade released her hand to cup her face, his touch achingly gentle. "I know you're scared. You'd be foolish not to be, after what you've been through. But Sarah, I'm not asking you to stop being scared. I'm just asking you to give me a chance to prove that not all men are monsters. That some of us actually mean it when we promise to cherish and protect. What if Marcus? We'll deal with Marcus when the time comes," Wade said. "Together. But right now, in this moment, it's just you and me. And I'm asking, will you let me love you? Will you give us a chance?" Sarah looked into his eyes, those steady gray eyes that had never lied to her, never demanded more than she could give. She thought about the wildflowers that appeared on her windowsill, about the patience he'd shown teaching her to ride, about the way he'd given her choice and dignity when she had nothing. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I want to try." Wade's smile was like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. He leaned forward slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and pressed his lips to her forehead. A kiss so gentle, so reverent, it made her breath catch. "Thank you," he murmured against her skin, "for trusting me, for giving me a chance. I won't waste it, Sarah. I promise you that." They sat together in the hallway until the lamp burned low, talking in quiet voices about dreams and fears and possibilities. And when Sarah finally returned to her room, it was with the knowledge that for the first time in years, she wasn't facing the darkness alone. Marcus Brennan rode into the Wade Ranch 2 days later, and Sarah's worst nightmares became reality. She was in the kitchen, kneading dough for the evening's bread when she heard the horses. 3 of them, maybe 4, their hoofbeats distinctive even from inside the house. But one sound made her blood freeze, the particular rhythm of Marcus's black stallion, a sound she'd know anywhere after 2 years of living in fear of it. Her hands stilled in the dough. The world narrowed to that single sound, that approaching thunder of hooves that had so often preceded violence and pain. Wade appeared instantly at her side, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. His face was grim, his jaw set with determination. "Stay inside," he said quietly. "Keep away from the windows. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, you stay in this house. Do you understand? Wade, promise me, Sarah." He gripped her shoulders, his gray eyes boring into hers. "Promise me you'll stay inside." "I promise," she whispered, though every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to disappear before Marcus could see her. "Good." Wade pressed a quick kiss to her forehead, then strode toward the door. As he stepped outside, Sarah saw him check his gun, a deliberate, practiced motion that spoke of experience she'd never asked about. Dutch and the other hands emerged from the barn and bunkhouse, forming a line behind Wade. 6 men against 4, better odds than Sarah had dared hope for. But Marcus had always been snake-quick with a gun, and he never fought fair. Against her promise, Sarah moved to the window, positioning herself where she could see, but hopefully not be seen. Marcus dismounted, and the sight of him made Sarah's stomach churn with remembered fear. He looked exactly as she remembered, tall and handsome in a cruel way, with cold blue eyes and a smile that never reached them. He wore expensive clothes and carried himself with the arrogance of a man who'd never faced consequences for his actions. "Help you, gentlemen?" Wade's voice carried clearly through the open window, level and cold. "I'm looking for my wife." Marcus's voice was smooth, almost pleasant, the way it always was before the violence started. "Sarah Brennan. Been told she might be here." "No one here by that name," Wade said evenly. "Is that so?" Marcus's smile widened, predatory, because the storekeeper in town remembers a woman matching her description quite clearly. Dark hair, brown eyes, bruises on her face. "Says you took her in, offered her employment." He paused, letting the implication hang. "Now I appreciate the charity, friend, but she's my legal wife. I have the legal right, to take her home." "The way I hear it," Wade said, his voice dropping to something dangerous, "you have the right to stand trial for assault, possibly murder. A federal marshal might be real interested in your activities in Cheyenne." Marcus's expression hardened, the pleasant mask cracking. "You calling me a liar?" "I'm calling you a man who beats women," Wade said flatly. "That makes you lower than a snake's belly in my book, and I don't much care for snakes on my property." The tension ratcheted tight enough to snap. Sarah watched Marcus's hand drift toward his gun, watched the men with him, hired guns by the look of them, shift in their saddles. This was going to turn violent. Men were going to die, and it would be her fault. She couldn't let Wade die for her. She wouldn't. Before she could think it through, before fear could stop her, Sarah opened the door and stepped onto the porch. Marcus. Every eye turned to her. Wade made a sound of protest, moving instinctively to put himself between her and Marcus, but Sarah held up a hand, stopping him. She walked down the porch steps, each one feeling like a mile, keeping distance between herself and Marcus, but making herself visible. In the October sunlight, she knew he could see how she'd changed, how she'd filled out from the near starvation she'd experienced, how the bruises had faded, how she stood straighter, stronger. "I'm not going back with you," she said clearly, her voice not shaking despite the terror coursing through her veins. "Our marriage is over." Marcus's face darkened, a familiar storm gathering. "You don't get to decide that, Sarah. You're my wife. I paid your father good money for you. And you belong to me. I'm not property." The words came out stronger than she felt, fueled by weeks of Wade's patient insistence that she was a person, that she mattered. "I'm a person, a human being, and I choose to stay here." "You heard the lady," Wade said, moving to stand beside her, not in front of her, protecting her autonomy even now, but beside her, presenting a united front. "Time for you to ride out, Brennan. You're not welcome here." Marcus looked between them, and something ugly twisted his features, something that had always preceded his worst violence. "I see how it is. Found yourself a new owner, have you, Sarah? This one treat you better? Or does he beat you too when you forget your place?" "Watch your mouth," Wade growled, his hand moving toward his gun. "Or what?" Marcus smiled, showing teeth. "You'll challenge me? You and what army?" "Me and every man on this ranch who's sick of cowards who hurt women," Wade said coldly. "You want to draw on me, Brennan? Go ahead, but know that if you do, You're not just facing me, you're facing all of us. Marcus's eyes darted to the line of ranch hands, all armed, all watching him with unconcealed disgust. The hired guns with him shifted nervously. Clearly, they hadn't signed on for a 6-against-4 firefight where they'd be outnumbered and outgunned. Think carefully, Dutch added, his rifle held loose but ready. Because we all saw you threaten a woman. We all heard you admit to beating her. In these parts, that kind of behavior doesn't sit well. You ride away now, you might live to see tomorrow. You start trouble, and you won't leave this valley alive. For a long moment, the outcome balanced on a knife's edge. Sarah could see Marcus calculating odds, weighing his pride against his survival. His hand hovered over his gun, trembling with rage and indecision. Then Wade moved, faster than Sarah had ever seen anyone move. One moment he was beside her. The next, his fist connected with Marcus's jaw, with a sickening crack that echoed across the yard. Marcus staggered back, blood spraying from his split lip. Guns were drawn all around. Dutch and the hands training their weapons on Marcus's hired men. The hired men aiming back, creating a standoff that could turn deadly in a heartbeat. "Nobody moves!" Dutch's voice cracked like a whip. "First man to fire starts a bloodbath, and I guarantee none of you will walk away." Marcus spat blood, his hand moving toward his gun, murder in his eyes. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life, Wade. Nobody touches me. Nobody. My only mistake would be letting you ride out of here breathing," Wade said, his voice deadly calm. "But I'm going to give you a choice. You can ride away right now and never come back. Or you can draw. But know this, you draw on me, and it's not just me you're facing. You'll have to kill every man here, and before you do, one of us will put a bullet in you, guaranteed." "Wade, please," Sarah whispered, touching his arm. The muscle beneath her fingers was coiled tight as wire. "Please, I'm not worth dying over." He turned to her, and the look in his eyes stole her breath. "Yes, you are," he said simply. "You're worth everything. Worth fighting for. Worth dying for, if it comes to that." Marcus laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "How touching. True love on the frontier. Tell you what, Wade, I'll let you keep the whore. She wasn't worth the trouble anyway." His smile was cruel. "Couldn't even give me a son. Cold as ice in bed and barren besides. Good luck with that." "Get off my land," Wade said quietly, each word dropping like a stone. "And if I ever see you again, if I ever hear you've been asking questions or making threats, I won't be so charitable. Next time, we skip the conversation and go straight to the shooting. Do you understand me?" Marcus mounted his horse, his men following suit with obvious relief. "You're making an enemy, Wade. Bad idea in this territory." "I'll take my chances." Wade didn't move, didn't back down, standing like a wall between Marcus and Sarah. They watched Marcus and his men ride away, dust rising in their wake. The moment they disappeared over the ridge, Sarah's legs gave out. Wade caught her, lowering them both to the ground, holding her as she shook with reaction. "It's over," he murmured against her hair, his voice rough. "He's gone. You're safe. He can't hurt you anymore." "You could have died," Sarah sobbed, her fingers clutching his shirt. "He could have killed you. They could have killed all of you. And it would have been my fault." "No." Wade pulled back to look at her face, his hands framing her cheeks. "None of this is your fault. You didn't ask to be married to a monster. You didn't do anything to deserve the way he treated you. The only person at fault here is Marcus Brennan. And he's gone. Do you hear me? He's gone, and you're safe. But what if he comes back? What if— Then we'll deal with it, Wade said firmly. Together. But Sarah, I meant what I said out there. You're worth fighting for. Worth dying for. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat, because you matter. You matter to me, to Dutch, to every man on this ranch. You're part of us now, part of this family, and we protect our own. Sarah looked into his eyes, those steady gray eyes that had never lied, and felt something shift inside her. Some final wall crumbling, some last defense falling away. I love you, she whispered. God help me. I love you so much it terrifies me. Wade's smile was brilliant, transforming his entire face. Then that makes two of us terrified, he said, and kissed her. It wasn't like the gentle kiss in the hallway. This was deeper, more desperate, flavored with the adrenaline of near violence and the relief of survival. This was need and want, and the acknowledgement of something that could no longer be denied. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Wade pressed his forehead to hers. Come inside, he murmured. Let me hold you. Let me show you that you're safe. That night changed everything. After the confrontation, after the other men had dispersed to their tasks with knowing looks and quiet congratulations, Wade led Sarah inside. But instead of leaving her at her door, as he always had, he followed her into the room at her invitation. They sat together on the bed, Sarah's hand clasped in Wade's, neither quite knowing what to say. The air between them hummed with possibility and fear in equal measure. I don't know how to do this, Sarah finally whispered. How to let someone close after— We do it slowly, Wade said gently, one moment at a time. And Sarah, I need you to understand something. I'm not expecting anything. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not until you're ready. If all we ever do is hold hands and talk, that's enough for me. You're enough for me. Tears slipped down Sarah's cheeks. How are you real? How can you possibly be this patient, this kind? Because you're worth it, he said simply. And because I know what it's like to lose someone you love. I'm not going to rush us, and risk losing you because I was too impatient to let you heal properly. Sarah took a shaky breath, then made a decision. Will you just hold me? Not anything else. Just hold me. Of course. Wade kicked off his boots and lay back on the bed, opening his arms. Come here. She curled against his side, her head on his chest, his arm around her shoulders. Beneath her ear, his heart beat steady and strong. They lay like that for a long time, watching firelight from the lamp flicker on the ceiling, neither speaking, just existing together in the safety of the moment. Tell me what happened to Lily, Sarah said eventually. All of it. I want to know. Wade was silent so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, his voice rough with old pain. She went into labor early. The baby, our son, wasn't positioned right. The midwife tried everything, and when that didn't work, I rode for the doctor in Cheyenne. Took 4 hours there and back, riding like hell. But by the time we returned, his voice broke, and Sarah felt wetness on the top of her head. Wade was crying, she realized, silent tears for the wife and child he'd lost. She was conscious when I got back, in so much pain, but still conscious. She looked at me and said she was sorry. Sorry like it was her fault, like she'd failed me. His arm tightened around Sarah. I told her it was going to be okay. I lied to her. I held her hand and lied, and told her everything would be fine. And then she was gone. She died while I was lying to her. Wade, Sarah whispered, her own tears falling now. I'm so sorry. So sorry. For a long time, I thought I'd died too. Just kept breathing out of habit. Built this ranch, expanded the herd, went through the motions, but I was hollow inside. He pressed a kiss to her hair. Then you stumbled into that general store, trying to trade your mother's ring for food. And something in me woke up, like I'd been asleep for 6 years and suddenly remembered what it felt like to be alive. Sarah lifted her head to look at him. In the lamplight, his face was open, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. I was so broken when I came here. I still am, in so many ways. We're both broken, Wade said gently, reaching up to brush tears from her cheek. Both scarred. Both carrying pain we didn't ask for. But Sarah, maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need to be perfect. Maybe we just need to be honest about our damage and willing to heal together. Together, Sarah echoed, and the word felt like a vow. They spent that night talking, sharing stories of their pasts, the good and the bad, the beautiful and the terrible. Wade told her about growing up poor in Missouri, about learning to ranch from his father, about the dreams that had driven him west. Sarah told him about her mother's gentleness, her father's gambling debts, the arranged marriage that had become a nightmare. He never saw me as a person, Sarah whispered. I was property to him, a thing he owned, like his horse or his gun. When I couldn't give him a child after the first year, he said I was defective, broken, worthless, except for cooking and cleaning. You're not defective, Wade said fiercely. And even if you could never have children, which you don't know for certain, it wouldn't make you worthless. Your value isn't tied to your womb, Sarah. It's in your strength, your kindness, your courage. It's in who you are as a person. Marcus said, Marcus is a liar and a coward, Wade interrupted. Nothing that man said about you has any truth to it. You hear me? Nothing. Sarah looked into his eyes and saw only conviction, only certainty. Slowly, tentatively, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was gentle, exploratory, a question rather than a demand. Wade's hand came up to cup her face, but he let her control the kiss, let her set the pace. When she pulled back, his eyes were dark but patient. Can I ask you something? Sarah whispered. Anything. That night in the hallway, when I said I didn't know if I could be intimate. What did you think? Wade considered the question carefully. I thought that any man worth his salt would wait as long as necessary for the woman he loves to feel safe. I thought that if all we ever had was conversations and hand-holding, I'd count myself lucky. He stroked her cheek with his thumb. Sarah, I'm not with you because I want something from you. I'm with you because I love who you are. The intimacy, if it ever happens, will be a gift, not an expectation. But you're a man, Sarah said, confusion coloring her voice. Don't you want? Of course I want you, Wade said bluntly. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. But wanting and demanding are different things. I can want you and still be perfectly happy waiting until you're ready. Your healing is more important than my desires. Sarah felt something crack open inside her, some frozen place Marcus's cruelty had created. I want to try, she whispered. Not everything, not tonight, but something. I want to know what it feels like to be touched with kindness. Wade's eyes darkened, but his voice remained gentle. Are you sure? Sarah, there's no rush. We have time. I'm sure. She took his hand and placed it over her heart, where it hammered against her ribs. I'm terrified, but I'm sure. Will you show me? Show me what gentleness feels like? Always, Wade breathed and kissed her again. What followed was a revelation. Wade touched her like she was precious, fragile, sacred. Every caress came with a question, spoken or unspoken, and he never pushed, never demanded. When Sarah tensed, he immediately pulled back, giving her space to breathe, to decide if she wanted to continue. He kissed her slowly, thoroughly, as if they had all the time in the world. His hands moved over her shoulders, her arms, her waist, always above her clothing, always respectful, always asking permission. "Go slow," Sarah whispered at one point, old fear creeping in. "I'm still hurting." Wade immediately stilled, his eyes searching hers. "Then I'll heal you with every touch," he promised, his voice rough with emotion. "However long it takes, Sarah, however long you need." They didn't make love that night, but they crossed a threshold, moved from friendship and attraction into something deeper, more intimate. They fell asleep tangled together, Wade's arms around her, Sarah's head on his chest, both of them healing in the safety of each other's presence. October gave way to November, and with it came a deepening of Sarah and Wade's relationship. They moved slowly, carefully, building trust one day at a time. Wade courted her properly, bringing her wildflowers, taking her on rides through the autumn gold landscape, sitting with her on the porch at sunset to watch the mountains turn purple in the fading light. The physical intimacy progressed gradually, a kiss goodnight that lingered, Wade's hand on the small of her back as they walked, Sarah threading her fingers through his hair as they sat together by the fire. Each touch was a negotiation, a conversation, a building of trust. "You're patient beyond reason," Sarah said one evening as they sat together in Wade's room, a space she'd started spending evenings in, though she still slept in her own bed. "I'm patient because you're worth waiting for," Wade replied, his arm around her shoulders. "And because rushing this would be the stupidest thing I could possibly do." In late November, Sarah worked up the courage to ask about the photographs she'd found in his desk. Wade showed her the pictures of Lily, a young woman with dark hair and a luminous smile, holding baby clothes she'd sewn in preparation for a child that never grew old enough to wear them. "She was beautiful," Sarah said softly, studying the photograph. "She was." Wade's voice was sad but steady. "And I loved her with everything I had. But Sarah, that was a different love, a different life. What I feel for you, it's not less, it's just different. More hard-won, more conscious. I chose to love you, knowing what loss could mean. That makes it precious in ways I can't explain." Sarah set down the photograph and cupped Wade's face. "Thank you for choosing me, for seeing past my fear to what I could be." "What you already are," Wade corrected, and kissed her deeply. December arrived with the first snows, and the ranch settled into winter rhythms. The work was harder, breaking ice on water troughs, feeding cattle, keeping the stock sheltered, but there was a coziness to it too. Long evenings by the fire, quiet mornings watching snow fall outside the windows, the comfort of routine and safety. On Christmas Eve, Wade gave Sarah a gift that made her cry, a beautiful leather-bound journal and a set of pencils. "For writing," he explained. "Dutch mentioned you used to write poetry before you were married. I thought maybe you'd like to try again." "I haven't written anything in years," Sarah whispered, running her hand over the smooth leather. "Then maybe it's time to start," Wade said gently. "Part of healing is finding the pieces of yourself you lost and reclaiming them." That night, Sarah made a decision. After everyone had gone to bed, after the house was quiet and still, She went to Wade's room and knocked softly on the door. He opened it, surprise crossing his face. "Sarah, is everything all right?" "I want to stay with you tonight," she said quietly. "Really stay with you, if you'll have me." Wade's eyes darkened with desire and concern in equal measure. "Are you sure?" "Sarah, you don't have to." "I'm sure." She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "I'm still scared. I don't know if I'll be able to go through with everything. But I want to try. With you. Because I love you, and I trust you, and I need to know that intimacy can be something other than painful." Wade cupped her face in both hands, his thumbs gentle on her cheekbones. "Then we'll go slow as you need. And Sarah, if at any point you need to stop, we stop. No questions, no disappointment, no pressure. Your comfort, your consent, is more important than anything else. Do you understand?" "I understand," Sarah whispered and kissed him. What followed was a revelation of tenderness. Wade undressed her slowly, reverently, pausing to kiss every scar Marcus had left, physical and otherwise. "You're beautiful," he murmured against her skin. "Every inch of you, every part of your story." "Even the broken parts?" she whispered, fighting tears. "Especially those." He pulled back to meet her eyes. "They're proof you survived. Proof you're here with me. Proof of your incredible strength." They came together slowly, carefully, Wade checking in constantly. "Is this okay? Does this hurt? Do you want me to stop?" Until Sarah was the one pulling him closer, asking for more, discovering that yes, it could be different, it could be tender, it could be safe. Afterward, lying in Wade's arms, with firelight painting shadows on the walls, Sarah felt something. "Not because you need protection or a home, not because I've been courting you for months. Marry me because you want to, because you love me the way I love you, because you choose me." Sarah lifted her head to look at him. In the firelight, his face was open, vulnerable, hopeful. "Yes," she said simply, feeling the rightness of it settle into her bones. "Yes, I'll marry you. I choose you, Wade. Today, tomorrow, always." His smile was brilliant, transforming his entire weathered face. He rolled them over, pinning her gently beneath him, and kissed her with such joy, such love, that Sarah laughed against his mouth. "When?" he asked, peppering kisses across her face. "Tomorrow? Next week? I don't want to wait." "New Year's Day," Sarah decided. "A new year, but new beginning. A new life together." "Perfect," Wade breathed, and sealed it with a kiss that promised everything. They married on New Year's Day, 1887, in the ranch's main room with Dutch as witness and the other hands in their Sunday best. Sarah wore a dress of deep blue velvet that Wade had ordered specially from Cheyenne. Not white, because she wasn't pretending to be something she wasn't, but rich and beautiful and entirely hers. Wade wore a new suit that made his gray eyes look like storm clouds. And when he saw Sarah descend the stairs, the expression on his face made her breath catch. He looked at her like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, like he couldn't quite believe his luck. The circuit preacher spoke of love and commitment, of building a life together, of the sacred trust between husband and wife. But Sarah barely heard the words. She was too focused on Wade's face, on the way he looked at her, like she was something precious and rare, on the fierce determination in his eyes that promised he would spend the rest of his life proving his vows meant something. When the preacher asked if she took this man, Sarah said, "I do," without hesitation. her voice clear and strong. No fear, no doubt, just certainty. Wade's vows were simple but devastating. I promise to cherish you, protect you, and honor you all the days of my life. I promise to be patient, to be kind, and to never give you cause to fear me. I promise to love you, not in spite of your scars, but because they're part of who you are, and you're the strongest, bravest woman I've ever known. I promise to choose you, every day, for the rest of my life. By the time he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room, including Sarah's own. She managed her own vows through tears. I promise to trust you, to build a life with you, to choose courage over fear. I promise to love you for the man you are, patient and kind and gentle and strong. I promise to honor Lily's memory by loving you the way you deserve to be loved. And I promise to choose you every day for the rest of my life. The kiss that sealed their marriage was sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, the men erupted in cheers and whistles, and Dutch produced a bottle of whiskey he'd been saving for just such an occasion. To the happy couple, Dutch toasted, may your love be as enduring as these mountains and as deep as the creek that runs through this land. That night, in the bedroom they now officially shared, Wade undressed Sarah slowly, reverently, pressing kisses to every scar Marcus had left. You're mine now, he murmured against her skin. Then quickly clarified, not as property, as a partner, as an equal, as the woman I chose and who chose me back. I know what you meant, Sarah said softly, running her fingers through his hair. And Wade, I'm not afraid anymore. Not of you, not of this. I trust you completely. They made love slowly, tenderly, Wade whispering words of love and reassurance until Sarah cried, not from pain or fear, but from the overwhelming joy of being seen, being known, being loved exactly as she was, scars and all, past and all, broken pieces and all. Afterward, drowsy and content, Sarah traced the scar on Wade's shoulder, a memento from a horse that had thrown him years ago. We're both scarred, she said softly, both broken in our ways. Then we'll heal together, Wade replied, pulling her closer. One day at a time, one moment at a time. Together. Together, Sarah echoed and fell asleep smiling. Spring came to Wyoming in a riot of wildflowers and new grass, and with it came changes to the Wade Ranch. Sarah planted a kitchen garden 3 times the size of her first one, growing vegetables and herbs, but also flowers, bright patches of color that made the house feel truly like a home. She learned to ride well enough to accompany Wade on his rounds, checking fences and cattle. She loved the freedom of it, loved the partnership they'd developed, loved that Wade treated her as an equal rather than something fragile that needed protection. Wade taught her the business side of ranching, showing her the books, explaining his plans for expansion. This is as much yours as mine now, he said firmly. I want you to know how everything works. Your voice matters here, Sarah. Your opinion matters. It was a revelation, being treated as an equal partner rather than property. Sarah threw herself into learning, studying the cattle market, understanding feed costs and profit margins, contributing ideas that Wade implemented without hesitation. In May, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. The realization brought a complicated mixture of emotions. Joy, certainly, but also fear. She'd seen what childbirth had cost Lily, cost Wade. What if history repeated itself? What if she couldn't survive it? What if the baby didn't survive? And underneath that fear lurked Marcus's cruel words: barren, defective, worthless, except for cooking. And then he pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "Thank you," he whispered hoarsely. "Thank you for trusting me with this, with everything." "You're not afraid?" Sarah asked, her voice muffled against his chest. "Terrified," Wade admitted, pulling back to look at her face. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. "But I'm also grateful and hopeful, and so damn in love with you I can barely think straight. We'll face this together, Sarah. I'll get the best midwife, the best doctor. I'll take every precaution. I won't lose you. I can't lose you." "What if something goes wrong?" Sarah whispered. "What if I can't?" "Then we'll deal with it," Wade said firmly. "But Sarah, you're strong, stronger than you know. You survived Marcus. You survived walking 3 days through hostile territory. You survived fear and pain and trauma that would have destroyed most people. You can survive this too." "Together," Sarah said, and felt her fear ease slightly at the promise in that single word. "Together," Wade agreed, and kissed her with a tenderness that made her heart ache. Wade threw himself into preparation with single-minded intensity. He hired Mrs. Chen, the most experienced midwife in the territory, and secured a promise from the doctor in Cheyenne to be available if needed. He stocked the house with supplies, read every book on childbirth he could find, and consulted with Dutch about every possible complication. "You're driving yourself crazy," Sarah told him one evening as he pored over yet another medical text. "And me, with you? I can't lose you," Wade said simply, looking up from the book. "I won't survive it, Sarah. Not again." She took the book from his hands and set it aside, then climbed into his lap, framing his face with her hands. "You're not going to lose me. Women have babies every day and survive. I'm healthy, strong, well-fed. I have the best medical care available. And I have you." She kissed him softly. "But Wade, you need to trust that it's going to be okay. Otherwise, you'll make yourself sick with worry." "How can I trust that when I've already seen it go wrong?" "Because I'm not Lily," Sarah said gently. "I'm me. And this is a different pregnancy, a different baby, a different circumstance entirely. You can't let fear of what happened before steal the joy of what's happening now." Wade closed his eyes, pulling her closer. "When did you get so wise?" "When I married a man who taught me that surviving isn't enough, that I deserve to live fully, not just exist in fear of what might go wrong." As summer deepened and Sarah's belly grew round with their child, she bloomed. She'd never felt healthier, stronger, more alive. The morning sickness passed quickly, and she threw herself into preparing the nursery, sewing tiny clothes, making plans for the future. Wade remained vigilantly protective, not controlling, but watchful, ready to help with anything that had become too difficult. He talked to the baby constantly, his hands on her stomach, telling their child about the ranch, about the mountains, about all the adventures they'd have together. "You're going to spoil this child rotten," Sarah said, laughing, one autumn evening as Wade serenaded her belly with a ridiculous song about a cowboy and his horse. "Absolutely," Wade agreed, unrepentantly. "This child is going to know every single day that they're loved and wanted and precious. That's not spoiling, that's just truth." In late February, on a night when the wind howled outside but the house was warm and safe, Sarah went into labor. Wade sent Polly racing to town for Mrs. Chen, then turned to Sarah with determination. "We've got this, you and me, together." The labor was long and difficult, stretching through the night and into the next day. Sarah had never experienced pain like it, wave after wave of contractions that left her gasping and crying out. But Wade never left her side, holding her hand, whispering encouragement, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I can't do this," Sarah gasped at one point, exhausted beyond measure. "Wade, I can't." "Yes, you can," he said firmly, his gray eyes boring into hers. "You're the strongest person I've ever met, Sarah. You survived Marcus, survived the trail, survived everything that tried to break you. You can do this. And I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." Mrs. Chen, calm and competent, coached Sarah through each contraction. "You're doing wonderfully, dear. The baby's almost here, just a little more." When dawn broke, 22 hours after the labor had begun, a baby's cry filled the house. Strong, healthy, furious at being born. Mrs. Chen wrapped the infant and placed her in Sarah's arms. "Congratulations," she said with a tired smile. "You have a beautiful daughter." Sarah looked down at the tiny, perfect face, Wade's gray eyes, her dark hair, and fell instantly, completely in love. "Hello, little one," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We've been waiting for you." Wade, who'd been standing frozen with relief and awe, reached out a tentative finger to touch his daughter's hand. She gripped it immediately, her tiny fist strong and sure. "She's perfect," he breathed, his own tears falling unchecked. "Absolutely perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for her. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for everything." They named her Lily Rose. Lily for the woman who'd given Wade his capacity to love. Rose for Sarah's mother, who taught her strength in the face of hardship. It felt right, honoring the past while embracing the future. 5 years later, Sarah stood on the porch, watching Wade teach Lily to ride on the same gentle mare, now graying at the muzzle, that had taught Sarah years before. Their daughter laughed fearlessly, her gray eyes alight with joy, utterly confident in her father's protection. 2 more children had followed Lily, a son named James, who had Sarah's dark eyes and Wade's stubborn chin, and a baby girl called Emma, who was only 6 months old and already ruling the household with her imperious cries and sunny smiles. The ranch had prospered. Wade's cattle operation had expanded to include horse breeding, and Sarah had developed a thriving business raising chickens and selling eggs in town. They'd built a schoolhouse on the property, and 3 other ranch families sent their children to learn alongside the Wade children. Dutch still served as foreman, though he walked with a cane now, and spent more time directing than doing. The original hands had been joined by others, all carefully vetted by Wade, to ensure they were men of character who'd respect Sarah and protect the children. "Mama, Mama, look!" Lily shouted, standing in the stirrups like she'd seen her father do. "I'm flying!" "I see you, sweetheart!" Sarah called back, her heart swelling with pride and love and a gratitude so profound it brought tears to her eyes. Wade lifted Lily down and walked toward the porch, their daughter racing ahead to hug Sarah's legs before running off to find James. Wade climbed the steps and pulled Sarah into his arms, kissing her with the easy affection of years of practice. "Happy?" he asked, the question he'd been asking since their wedding day. Sarah looked out at the ranch, their ranch, at the mountains turning gold in the evening light, at their children playing in the yard, at this life they'd built together from broken pieces and desperate hope. She thought about the woman she'd been, stumbling into Redemption Creek with nothing but a gold ring and terror, and the woman she'd become, strong, whole, Loved beyond measure. Happier than I ever imagined possible, she said honestly, meaning it with every fiber of her being. Wade smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. Me too, darling. Me too. That night, after the children were asleep and the ranch was quiet, Sarah and Wade sat on their porch, watching stars emerge in the vast Wyoming sky. Wade's arm was around her shoulders. Her head rested on his chest, and between them was the kind of peace that only comes from surviving the worst and choosing to build something beautiful anyway. "Do you ever think about that first day?" Sarah asked softly. "When you stopped me from selling my mother's ring?" "Every day," Wade admitted. "Best day of my life, except for our wedding day, and the days our children were born." "I was so broken," Sarah whispered. "So damaged. I didn't think I could ever be whole again." Wade pressed a kiss to her hair. "You were never broken, Sarah. Wounded, yes. Hurt, absolutely, but never broken. Your strength, your courage, your capacity to love, Marcus couldn't touch those. They were always there, just waiting for safety to bloom." Sarah thought about those words, about the truth in them. She hadn't been saved. She'd been given space to save herself. Wade hadn't fixed her. He'd held her while she healed. He'd offered dignity, choice, patience, and love, and that had made all the difference. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For seeing me, for waiting, for showing me what love is supposed to look like, for giving me back myself." Wade turned her face up to his gray eyes soft in the starlight. "I should be thanking you. You gave me a reason to live again, to hope again. You gave me a family and a future I thought I'd lost forever." He kissed her gently. "I love you, Sarah Wade. Today, tomorrow, always." "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "Together." "Together," he agreed, and in that single word was a promise that had been tested and proven, forged in hardship and tempered in love. Inside the house, baby Emma began to cry, that particular wail that meant she was hungry and wasn't about to wait. Sarah and Wade laughed, the moment broken but not lost, and went together to tend to their daughter. And if sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, Sarah still woke with her heart racing from nightmares of Marcus and violence, Wade was always there, solid, real, patient, to remind her that she was safe, that she was home, that she was loved. The scars never fully faded. Some wounds go too deep for that. But they became part of the story, proof of survival, reminders of strength. Sarah wore them the way Wade wore his, with acceptance, with pride. With the knowledge that surviving didn't mean being unchanged, but rather being changed in ways that made you more fully, authentically yourself. Years later, when Lily was 12 and asking difficult questions about life and love, Sarah told her daughter the truth. Not all of it, not the darkest parts, but enough. "Your father saved my life," Sarah said, sitting with Lily on the porch at sunset, the same spot where so many important conversations had happened over the years. "By bringing you here?" Lily asked. "No," Sarah chose her words carefully. "By giving me a choice, by treating me like a person instead of property, by showing me that love doesn't have to hurt. It can be the safest thing in the world." Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. "Mama, were you afraid of Papa when you first met him?" Sarah considered lying, softening it, but decided her daughter deserved honesty. "Yes, I was afraid of all men. Someone had hurt me very badly, and I thought all men were like that. But your father proved me wrong. He was patient when I needed patience, gentle when I needed gentleness, strong when I needed protection. He never demanded more than I could give. Is that why you love him? Sarah smiled, looking out at where Wade was teaching James to rope fence posts, the same way he'd once taught her to shoot, to ride, to trust again. I love him because he saw past my fear to my strength, because he gave me time to heal, because he showed me that I could be whole again. She pulled Lily close. And I love him because he gave me you, and your brother and sister, because he built this life with me, not for me. I want to find someone like Papa someday, Lily said wistfully. I hope you do, sweetheart. But more importantly, I hope you never settle for less. Never let anyone make you feel small or worthless or afraid. You're a Wade, strong, brave, worthy of respect and kindness. Don't ever forget that. I won't, Mama, Lily promised, and Sarah prayed it was true. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Wade surprised Sarah with a gift that made her cry. A leather-bound book containing all the poems she'd written over the years, beautifully transcribed and illustrated with sketches of the ranch, the mountains, their children. How did you? Wade had been collecting them. Wade admitted, looking pleased with himself. Every poem you've written since that first Christmas when I gave you the journal. I sent them to a bookbinder in Denver. Thought you should see your words the way I see them. Beautiful, powerful, worth preserving. Sarah flipped through the pages, seeing her own journey reflected in verse. Poems about fear and healing. About learning to trust again, about the first time Wade kissed her, about the births of their children, about building a life from broken pieces. The final poem, written just weeks before, was titled Together. We were both broken when we met, shattered by losses we couldn't forget. You offered kindness when I had nothing, saw strength in me when I saw only suffering. You taught me patience, gentleness, grace, showed me that love could be a safe place. Day by day, touch by touch, kiss by kiss, you healed my heart, gave me back hope and bliss. Now we stand with children at our feet, our ranch sprawling where the mountains meet. The scars remain, they always will, but they're proof of survival. Evidence of will. You didn't save me. That's not your role. You gave me space to make myself whole. And in that space I found not just me, but us, together, finally free. It's perfect, Wade said, his voice rough with emotion. You're perfect. This life we've built, it's more than I ever dreamed possible. Sarah closed the book and wrapped her arms around his neck. We're not perfect. We're scarred and damaged and still healing in so many ways. Then we're perfectly imperfect, Wade corrected, pulling her close. And that's more than enough for me. They made love that night with the tenderness of long practice and deep knowing, celebrating not just their anniversary, but the miracle of their survival, their healing, their choice to keep choosing each other, day after day, year after year. The years continued to unfold like pages in a book, some chapters joyful, some challenging. All of them lived together. When Lily was 15, a young man from a neighboring ranch began courting her. Wade, predictably, was protective to the point of intimidation. It was Sarah who had to remind him that their daughter needed to make her own choices, learn her own lessons. But what if he hurts her? Wade demanded, pacing the bedroom like a caged wolf. Then we'll be here to help her heal, Sarah said calmly, the way you were there for me. But Wade, you can't protect her from everything. Life includes pain. The best we can do is teach her she's strong enough to survive it and worthy of better. I don't like it, Wade grumbled, but he eased off, trusting Sarah's wisdom. When James was 17, he announced his intention to join the cavalry. Wade's face went white, but he didn't forbid it. Instead, he took his son riding into the mountains for 3 days, and they returned with an understanding between them. James would finish his education first, then make his choice with full knowledge of what military life entailed. Emma, their youngest, grew into a firecracker of a girl, bold, opinionated, completely fearless. "She's going to change the world," Wade said with pride and a touch of terror, watching their 10-year-old daughter argue politics with the circuit preacher. "She gets it from you," Sarah teased. "She gets it from you," Wade countered. "That fierce independence, that refusal to be silenced or diminished. That's all you, Sarah. Through it all, the challenges of raising children, the inevitable conflicts and joys, the hard years when drought threatened the ranch, and the good years when cattle prices soared, Sarah and Wade remained partners in the truest sense. They made decisions together, supported each other through difficulties, celebrated victories as a team. Their love deepened, matured, became something unshakable. They knew each other's moods, habits, fears. They could communicate with a glance across a crowded room. They still found time for intimacy, for connection, for the private moments that bound them together. "How do you do it?" Dutch asked Wade one day, as they watched Sarah organize a community barn raising, her natural leadership bringing neighbors together. "Stay so in love after all these years?" Wade considered the question. "Choice," he said finally. "Love isn't just a feeling. It's a decision you make every day. I choose Sarah. Choose to be patient when she's struggling. Choose to support her dreams. Choose to see her clearly, scars and all, and love what I see. And she chooses me back. That's what makes it work." Sounds simple when you say it like that. Simple doesn't mean easy, Wade clarified. Some days the choice is hard, but she's always worth it. On their 20th anniversary, the entire community gathered at the Wade Ranch for a celebration. The house had been expanded over the years. More rooms for the growing children. A library for Sarah's ever-expanding collection of books. A workshop where Wade built furniture in his spare time. As Sarah looked around at the crowd, neighbors who'd become friends, children who'd grown into young adults, grandchildren from other families playing with Emma, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "Speech," someone called, and the crowd took up the chant. Sarah looked at Wade, who nodded encouragingly. She stood, her hands shaking slightly, and raised her glass. 20 years ago, she began, her voice carrying across the yard. "I stumbled into Redemption Creek with nothing but fear and a gold ring. I was running from a nightmare, convinced my life was over. And then I met a man who showed me something I'd forgotten, that I was worth more than my worst experience. That I could heal. That I could be loved." She looked at Wade, who was watching her with such open adoration that it made her breath catch even after 2 decades. "Wade didn't save me," Sarah continued. "He gave me something better. He gave me the space and safety to save myself. He gave me dignity when I felt worthless, choice when I felt powerless, patience when I couldn't trust, and love, constant, unwavering love, when I couldn't imagine being loved again." Her voice broke, and Wade was there instantly, his arm around her waist, steadying her. "We've built something incredible here," Sarah said, gesturing to the ranch, the house, the gathered community. "Not just a successful operation, but a family, a home, a place where broken things can heal. And I'm grateful, so grateful, for every moment of the journey." She raised her glass higher. "To Wade, the best man I've ever known. to our children, who are our greatest blessing, and to all of you for being part of our story. Thank you. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Wade pulled Sarah close and kissed her, heedless of their audience, and Sarah kissed him back with all the love and gratitude in her heart. Later, as the party wound down and guests departed, Sarah and Wade found themselves alone on the porch, their spot, their sanctuary, watching the sun set over mountains that had witnessed their entire journey. Any regrets? Wade asked, the question he'd been asking for 20 years. Not a single one, Sarah answered, the same response she'd been giving. And she meant it. Every hardship, every challenge, every moment of fear and pain, all of it had led to this man, this life, this profound sense of belonging. Good, Wade said, kissing her temple, because I plan on spending the next 20 years making sure you stay that way. Only 20? Sarah teased. How about forever? Forever sounds perfect. They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell and stars emerged. Two people who'd found each other in the darkest moments and built something luminous from the wreckage. Two people who'd learned that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about being honest, patient, kind, about choosing each other day after day through good times and hard times, about healing together. When Sarah was 53 and Wade 58, Dutch passed away peacefully in his sleep. The loss hit them both hard. Dutch had been more than foreman, more than friend. He'd been family, witness to their entire journey, guardian of their story. At the funeral, Sarah spoke about Dutch's loyalty, his wisdom, his fierce protectiveness of those he loved. He taught me, she said, that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up, who stand by you, who see your worth when you can't see it yourself. After the service, as Sarah and Wade stood by Dutch's grave, Wade said quietly, "He told me once that I'd found something rare with you. Said most people go their whole lives without finding a love like ours." He was right. He usually was, Sarah agreed, leaning into Wade's embrace. Life continued, as it always does. Lily married her childhood sweetheart and had 3 children who regularly invaded the Wade Ranch for visits. James returned from military service with a wife and stories that made Sarah's hair stand on end. Emma went to college in Denver, one of the first women from the territory to do so, and came back with ideas about women's suffrage and equal rights that she championed with characteristic fervor. Sarah and Wade grew older, their hair graying, their bodies showing the wear of decades of hard work. But their love remained constant, deepening with each passing year into something precious beyond words. On the morning of Sarah's 60th birthday, she woke to find Wade already awake, watching her with those steady gray eyes that had first offered her hope so many years ago. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Just thinking about how lucky I am," Wade said softly. 32 years we've had together, 32 years of waking up next to you, and it's still not enough. I want 100 more. Sarah touched his weathered face, tracing the lines that experience had carved there. "We've had a good life, haven't we?" "The best," Wade confirmed. "You gave me everything, Sarah. Purpose, family, love, joy. You gave me reasons to live when I thought I was just going through the motions. You made me believe in second chances." "We gave each other second chances," Sarah corrected. "That's what makes it work. We both knew what loss looked like, what pain felt like. We both understood the value of what we'd found. Wade pulled her close, and they lay tangled together as morning light crept across the bedroom floor, the same way they'd lain together thousands of mornings before, finding comfort and connection in the simplicity of being together. "I love you," Wade murmured, "more today than yesterday, more tomorrow than today. That's never going to change, Sarah, not until I draw my last breath." "I love you too," Sarah whispered. "Thank you for being patient, for being kind, for showing me that go slow wasn't just about physical healing, it was about emotional healing too. Thank you for understanding that some wounds take years to close, and for standing by me while they did." "Always," Wade promised. "Together, remember?" "Together," Sarah echoed, and knew with absolute certainty that she'd found something most people only dream of. A love that had weathered every storm, survived every challenge, and emerged stronger for it. A love that had started with a simple act of kindness and grown into something that would outlast them both, living on in their children and grandchildren, in the ranch they'd built, in the community they'd helped create. A love that had proved beyond any doubt that broken things can heal when given the right care, that damaged people can become whole when given space and patience and unconditional acceptance. That love, real love, isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about the daily choice to be kind, to be patient, to see the best in each other, even when times are hard. It's about going slow when necessary and healing together. It's about finding someone who says, "I'll die before I hurt you," and actually means it. Sarah lived to be 78 years old, Wade to 83. They died within 6 months of each other. Sarah first, peacefully, in the bed they'd shared for over 5 decades, with Wade holding her hand and whispering his love. Wade followed soon after, as if he couldn't bear to be without her for long. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a single headstone that read, "Sarah and Thomas Wade, together in life, together in death. They proved that broken things can heal, and love can conquer fear." At Sarah's funeral, Lily stood before the gathered crowd and spoke about her mother's courage, her strength, her capacity for love, despite everything she'd endured. "My mother taught me," Lily said, her voice strong despite her tears, "that you are not defined by what happens to you. You're defined by how you respond to it." She was hurt, betrayed, abused, but she didn't let that make her bitter or cruel. She chose to heal. She chose to love. She chose to build something beautiful from the ashes of trauma. Emma, standing beside her sister, added, "And she taught us that real strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about being afraid and choosing courage anyway, about being wounded and choosing to heal, about being broken and choosing to become whole again." James, his voice thick with emotion, finished, "Dad taught us about honor and hard work, but Mom taught us about resilience, about the incredible power of choosing yourself, choosing love, choosing life, even when every reason exists not to." That's her legacy. That's what she's given us. The entire community mourned Sarah and Wade, not just because they'd been successful ranchers or good neighbors, but because their love story had inspired everyone who knew them. They'd proved that even the darkest beginnings could lead to the brightest endings, that patience and kindness could heal the deepest wounds. That choosing love every single day was the greatest act of courage imaginable. 20 years after Sarah's death, her great-granddaughter, also named Sarah, found the leather-bound book of poems in the ranch house attic. She read through them with wonder, seeing her great-grandmother's journey unfold in verse. At the very back, tucked into a pocket sewn into the binding, she found one final poem, written in Wade's distinctive handwriting. It was dated 3 days before his death. My Sarah sleeps beneath the hill. The mountains watch, the creek runs still. I feel her absence like a missing limb. Without her light, the world grows dim. But I don't mourn the life we've lost. I celebrate what love has cost. She gave me 30 years of grace, taught me patience, showed me my place. We were broken when we met that day, but love showed us a healing way. Not quick or easy, slow and sure, finding a cure. If I could speak to her right now, I'd simply say, you kept your vow. You chose me daily, loved me true, and I found heaven loving you. So when they lay me in the ground, don't weep for what cannot be found. Instead, remember what we made. 2 damaged souls who weren't afraid to go slow, heal deep, and love complete, to make each broken piece feel sweet. Remember that, and you'll understand. We lived life fully, hand in hand. Young Sarah closed the book, tears streaming down her face, and understood finally the depth of what her great-grandparents had shared. Not a fairy tale romance, but something better, something real, something hard-won and precious and worthy of being remembered. She carried the book downstairs and placed it in a position of honor in the ranch house library, where generations of Wades would find it and read it and understand that love, real, lasting, transformative love, is always worth the patience, the wait, the slow and careful healing it requires. And on the cover, she placed a small brass plaque with words taken from Wade's final poem, Go Slow, Heal Deep, Love Complete, Sarah and Thomas Wade, 1887 to 1967. A love story for the ages. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Sarah and Wade's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.